Hello and welcome to Chop Station. I'm your host, J-Boy. Listen, thank you for joining into our show today. We have a very special guest in the house today. We have Tamika McCoy here, and she is a nationally, I want to make sure I get this right, people, because this is very important, nationally certified domestic abuse victim advocate. Yeah. Okay, so we have her here today, and we're going to talk about the signs of an unhealthy relationship. So before I go too far, I'll just have her introduce herself and kind of tell you what her experiences are.
Hi, as he stated before, my name is Tamika McCoy. I'm a nationally certified domestic abuse victim advocate. I actually work for the Department of the Army right here at Fort Lee, Virginia. And I've been doing this for approximately 4 years. And that's basically what I do. I deal with victims of domestic violence, anywhere from assisting them with going to court or obtaining restraining orders. I accompany them to the hospital if there is a sexual abuse within the marriage, and a gamut of things. And one of the major things we do, I do advocate for services for them, and we also provide counseling services here and there for them as well. So there are a lot of things that we do for the victims of domestic abuse with the Army.
Okay, so without further ado, we know that y'all are very interested in this topic, so we want to jump right into it. So let's just go into it. Tamika, what are some signs of an unhealthy relationship?
One of the first signs is if the person has an anger issue when it comes to arguments. Now, we're not saying that people in relationships cannot argue. They can.
Okay.
But if it rises to the level of anything like name calling, belittling, or making the first person feel bad, or what I like to call fighting dirty. If the person brings something up about the past all the time, or especially if they speak to you in a manner that is disrespectful, that is definitely a really bad sign of an unhealthy dynamic, especially if they do it and then it's constant.
So like if you're in a relationship and the person is like, well, you did this so much longer, you did, like they cheated or something like that, and they just keep bringing it back up, or maybe not even to the level of cheating, but maybe just something of like, hey, you remember when you used to do X, Y, and Z, those type of things.
Absolutely. If they're constantly bringing up the past and then it rises to the level of, like I said, arguments, couples argue, but if it rises to the level of name calling and, like I said, belittling and especially fighting and hitting the person, that's a major sign of an unhealthy and toxic relationship. If the person puts their hands on you one time, that relationship has just become toxic. Because if they do it one time, they want to see most people who are in toxic relationships, and the person who is, I would say, the most toxic, because sometimes it's two people, they're going to push the envelope. They're going to try to see how much they can get away with. So if they put their hands on you once, and there's nothing done about it, no police call, and we kind of just brush it off, which sometimes people do, then what's going to happen is, more than likely, in my experience, and I've been a social worker for almost 20 years, it's going to happen again. I've seen it time and time again.
So like in those situations, could it be sometimes that the person who's actually making the accusations, or the person is actually the leader, I would say, or instigator in the domestic violence, could it be that they actually have some guilt within themselves that they're trying to convey out on the victim?
Absolutely. It could be guilt of something that they're doing, and it also could be them responding to the things that have happened in their past. Some people, and they're not going to reveal this, of course, when you meet them, but some people are actually raised in toxic and violent environments, and that's all they know. So say, for example, if you had a man who watched his mother experience violence or get hurt or constantly belittled or degraded or things of that nature, he's going to think that that's okay. So what's going to happen is your daughter or my daughter could grow up and meet this young man, and guess what? Now she's a victim of what he knows.
Because he doesn't really know any better besides what he saw.
Exactly. He does not know any better.
But the Bible says the sins of the father can be carried on.
Absolutely.
So he's just basically living out of sin and don't know why he's doing it.
And does not know why he's doing it, but it doesn't excuse it. And that's why if you find yourself, and it could be a woman as well, it's not gender specific. Violence is not gender specific. Males can be victims as well. We have male victims on our caseload, but I would say that if you find yourself in this situation, then you want to seek the help to get out of it.
Now, that's a very big, because I know a lot of people out there may have this question. Why don't you hear about it more in males?
Because there are different factors why males don't report. First of all, it's the pride thing.
Okay.
Remember growing up, you were told, don't hit a girl.
Yeah,
Remember?
yeah.
So there's that. And then there's also fear of judgment. You know, here he is, he's 6'3", she's 5'4", and he's walking in the police station with his hand over his eye saying, well, my wife hit me. Yeah. And there's the stigma. Law enforcement, there are some law enforcement sects that really need to be trained on not so much going into a situation thinking that it's always the man that is the aggressor. But society has told us that domestic violence is all about women getting hurt. It's not.
Well, you know, I read a story. This is interesting, and you can kind of verify if this would be the case or not. But I read a story the other day where the woman was actually going to hit the man, but the man actually just grabbed her to stop her from hitting him. And he actually got domestic abuse on him because he grabbed her. Absolutely.
We've seen that happen time and time again on a military installation, on and off. And we've had situations where the male was trying to remove himself. She was from the situation and the woman was, you know, fighting him, and he put out his arm to move her out of the way. Now, in this situation, she flung herself into the wall. And so she had a knot on her head. So when the police came, who do you think went to jail? The man. So as an advocate, I work hard to try to retrain. We go to police stations, we go to jails, we talk to anybody that will listen, that we need to understand that it knows no gender. Violence does not know a gender.
So I have a couple questions here. So it's kind of a catch-22 when whenever you're in a relationship with somebody. What do you do? Like, what do you do to make sure that in your relationship, it never crosses those boundaries and borders?
You got to know what your boundaries are. Like, you have to know, what is my zero tolerance? You know, but a lot of people don't know, so they choose to put up with being called names or being pushed or punched or slapped or kicked. And let me just say this too. A lot of people think that domestic abuse is about hitting a person. No, it could be financial, it could be verbal, it could be emotional, it could be something, it could be isolation. You know, I don't hit you, but I don't want you to see your friends. I don't want you to call your family. And if you call them, I have to be with you. Or you have situations where the one spouse makes all the money, or a significant other makes all the money, the other one doesn't and does not have access to it. They don't have any income or nothing. The other person just controls everything. So
it's a possessive thing. I need to be I need to be in control. So
power and control.
My next question would be: so what are if your family and friends are know about this? What do they do? Like, what part do they play in all of this?
They have to build a support system. And see, it depends on where the relationship is as far as how long the person's been in it. Because some people get used to the toxicity of it, and it's hard for them to leave. So family and friends just need to be a support system, and they need to understand, and that's the hard part. They need to understand that some victims and some toxic relationships will break up 7 times before they actually say
7 times.
This is 7. They actually say, you know what? No, I don't have to take this. And then some never. And then it evolves into something much more. And sometimes a person gets hurt, or it can lead to death.
Because I was just thinking that, you know, not to cut across, I was just thinking that when you were just talking, when you said, you know, it just 7 times. And I'm going, it's 7 times in my head. By the 7th time, something serious has probably occurred.
Absolutely. I want to say this too, and I want people to understand this. The most dangerous time for a victim of domestic abuse is when they're leaving. It's not when you're in it. It's when you're leaving. Because when an abuser feels like he or she has lost power and control, you are in danger. And you need to get some help. You need to call the police. You need to get your family and friends. Sometimes you may have to hide. I've had to relocate people several times in my career because this person was out to kill them.
You know, I heard a story. A friend of mine told me not too long ago where the police actually told a lady that within the last month they had come by about 4 or 5 times. But they actually told the lady that they would still continue to answer her calls, but they would not make it a priority as they did before, because every time they came, she never pressed charges. The person just kept doing it and kept going over, and she never did anything about it. So but you know, by them protect and serve, they're going to answer your calls. They're going to get there as fast as they can, but they're not. It's not going to be the same priority as it was the first time on the
No.
9th or 10th time. And I think this situation the guy was telling me about was about 4 to 14, 15 times they had been to the same house.
Absolutely. And
That's
sometimes it's several times.
and I know we do a lot of sports and stuff like that
Mhm.
too. So we talk about sports, as y'all see. That's our timer going off there.
Mhm.
But you hear a lot of sports topics and stuff too,
Mhm.
and you hear them talk about how there's a lot of domestic abuse going on in the NFL,
Mhm.
NBA, and there's more
Absolutely.
pushing things around that.
Absolutely.
The problem I have is that it's been going on.
It's been there. It
And
has been there.
A lot of times, I think even in our regular, general, everyday lives, money plays a factor into it.
Absolutely.
If I'm wealthy,
Always.
you know, if I feel like I'm being
Always.
taken care of, I don't want to report the person.
Absolutely.
If I have no, like you mentioned earlier, if I have no way to support myself and this person is gone, I
Absolutely.
don't want to call a person. Or if this is my
Absolutely.
gravy train, or and like you said, some cases, just this is what I've been raised to see.
This is all I know.
You know, one other story, and I have a question for you. You know,
Okay.
so I was at the local Walmart about a month or two ago,
Mhm.
and I pulled up, and the man and the lady were fussing. Who knows about what?
Mhm.
But they were fussing. But he walked over to her in the middle of broad daylight as if he was going to hit her in broad daylight. And I kind of stopped, and I had to check myself, like, so what are you going to do
Mhm.
if he does hit her?
Right.
You know, are you going to run in here, get the police? You going to call somebody? You going to defend her? What are you
Mhm.
going to do? But the shocking part and the most telling revelation about it was that you were willing to do it in broad daylight with no second thought.
None. So that is indicative of the fact that it goes on frequently at
Yes.
home, and he knows that she's not going to report it. He knows that he could get away with it. And see, the thing that I've learned, and I had we actually had an offender say this, and it's so true. He said when the first time, and he said it about a man because at the time he was a man, but I'm going to put this in perspective of any abuser.
Okay.
But he said, anytime a man puts his hands on a woman, it makes it that much easier for him to kill her.
Wow.
He said it makes it so easy, especially if she does not leave the relationship or do something about it. And what I mean by that is, you know, press charges or whatnot. If he knows I can get away with this, then I can do it when I want, how I want, wherever I want. I know you're not going to.
Yeah, see, that bothers me because that's the lowest of low.
Oh, yeah,
when you put your hands
absolutely.
on, first of all, you shouldn't put your hands on anybody.
No, not at all.
But when you put your hands, whether you're a woman putting your hand on a man or a man putting his hand on a woman or whatever it is, it's the simple fact of it is that you should never put your hands on somebody else. So I have one other question before we wrap up. And you guys out there also make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel, www.chopstation and the website. You can check us out on YouTube. If you have questions, post them down in the comments, post your likes on the video. Also, make sure that you on the website, if you have any follow-up questions for Tamika McCoy, please let me know, send them in. We can actually do a live stream session here where she can actually respond back to your questions and we can pull them up here on the PC and see exactly what's going on. So my last question for you is, bottom line, where do they go to get help?
Okay. There are several places they can go. Of course, if you're connected with the military, you can go to your local family advocacy program. And all you have to do is be a military ID card holder and say, hey, I'm a victim of domestic violence. We got it from there. Now, resources in your local area. The first way you can find them is you can call the 1-800 domestic violence hotline. All you have to do is Google it, and it'll basically come up and it'll tell you what local places can assist you. You can go to your local social services and they should be able to connect you to services in your area. Your local domestic violence shelter. Now, it does not, if you're a man, you can still call your local domestic violence shelter. And it may not be for shelter, but just to get the help and the information. But seek help. It does not matter. If you have a church, get with your pastor or your leaders in your church and say, hey, I'm going through this, and see what they have available for you. But the main thing is not to continue to stay in the relationship. And I know it's hard because, like you said before, there are various reasons why people don't leave. And sometimes you have to make a plan in order to leave, because sometimes of financial reasons, or you don't want the person to retaliate because you know you have to do it a certain way, like while they're at work. It's all kinds of ways. And so there are people like me, there are counselors, there are domestic abuse advocates in your area that are able to help you make that plan and help you leave. So don't feel like you are alone. And if you have to beat down the door, beat down the door. If somebody tells you no, call back and speak to somebody else. That person tells you no, you call back and speak to somebody else. Because the point is, we want to save your life. And always remember this. If you're in a situation where you feel unsafe, you need to call the police.
Okay. It just, while you were saying that, it just made me think of, for those people that are engaged, those people that are prospective married couples,
Absolutely.
They definitely need to seek counseling
Absolutely.
before they get married about not just communication and finances and sex, and they need to seek it. They need to seek it about, like, domestic abuse and domestic what qualifies as such, so that you may be having an argument and you grab somebody and you just like, what? Wait a minute, that's actually domestic. You see what I'm saying? Something. The line is so thin and it's so easy to cross that people that been married for 45 years don't even realize they've been a domestic. You see what I mean? So you just got to. It just dropped in my, a little nugget dropped in my spirit. That we got to make sure that we see, make sure that you get that counseling before you get married too. So again, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you being on the show this week. Chop Station, we thank you for joining again. We can't wait to see you next week with another Chop Drop. So as always, we'll close out one team, Chop Station. If you're looking to adopt a child, or maybe just need more information, did you know that there are over 100,000 children that are awaiting adoption? Over 85 million people have considered adoption, according to internet research. Please visit AdoptionSimplyWonderfulIncorporated.com. With over 30 years in the field and valuable knowledge of the Virginia state laws, they can assist your every need. Again, that's AdoptionSimplyWonderfulInc.com. Fill out the Contact Us on the contact page and expect a return call or email. Please let them know that you visited Chop Station in your comments. Remember, adopt, adopt, adopt. It's never too late, so start changing lives today.